All right, we back. Take two. So today we're gonna talk about politics. So today we got some special guests. We got Dr. Bolton, Joe, Mark, and we got Aaron, as well as myself and another special guest behind me. So can y'all explain y'all's definition with Democrats versus Republicans? We could start there.
You starting with me?
This is a general conversation. We ain't give you no punchline yet, Joe.
Democrats, I don't know.
Oh boy.
Some will vote for Trump, some will vote for Biden.
Okay. What about you, Mark?
Well, whenever I think of Democrat and Republican, like most people, they usually think of left-leaning politics and right-leaning politics. Liberal versus Republican. Liberal versus conservative.
Mm-hmm.
So Democrat, is usually pretty liberal, mostly focused on the government. I wouldn't say, usually they would say like pro-government, but more like we are in a group where we talk about how the government needs to sort of step in and sort of help with certain laws, whereas conservatives usually not really government leaning and focus more on, how like the state or local governments and help us, and not so much the federal government. Is usually what people mean when they mean like Democrat versus Republican, or just Democrat and Republican definitions in general. If we're talking about Democrat versus Republican, that's a whole different story, which we'll get into, I'm sure.
Yeah.
But that's just my basic definition. So anyone else?
I would look at it as more of a, just piggybacking off of what you said. You have basically your federalists versus anti-federalists. You got the Democrats generally wanting to have institutions in a federal government, a larger federal government, where you have the conservatives wanting a smaller federal government. Though I don't think really and truly that's what they're after anymore, either side. I think they're both kind of just building a bigger government without us just really kind of going, telling us what they're doing it.
Okay.
I think you also have to think about like the time period that you're in, where people will call themselves a Republican or a Democrat, because it has changed so much since its initial inception in American politics, that it really doesn't mean the same thing across, the decades and everything, or basically centuries at this point. But I think Tracy did a really good job of describing what, and Aaron too, of the Mark.
Fine, right.
Mark and Aaron describing contemporary definitions of a Republican versus a Democrat, but ultimately I agree. I think that there's, with the way that the American government is set up right now, there really isn't much of a difference. They just market themselves as different to get certain voters to support them. And by support, I'm going to do air quotes. So,
how has it changed? You said they've changed over the years. How have they changed?
I would say the platforms under which they run on and support. As we've had time go on, whenever we initially had Democrats versus Republicans, they're not dealing with the same issues that we're dealing with today. And that's on my very limited knowledge of American politics, specifically whenever you're talking about Democrat versus Republican.
What has changed, let's say, from the time of Lincoln, who was corporation heavy, to now, where you had Nixon, who was corporation heavy, you had Reagan, who was corporation heavy, you have Trump, who is corporation heavy. How where's the change?
Maybe the change is more so in the way that society itself is running, as we've seen the creation of corporations go from I would say perhaps at the time, relatively small organizations of people running a business to like giant corporations of people running a business. And, this kind of goes a little off topic, but of like how much control these corporations and how much like involvement these corporations and groups and businesses had in politics and influencing people, to vote or go a certain way.
Is that any different than how it's always been? Don't the billionaires run the country and the politicians kind of do what they say? That's the point of lobbyists. That's the point of.
You don't think it could like increase though? Like at this point in time, it was one thing, but now it's taking over. Like it's everything.
Is that any different than Andrew Carnegie, Vanderbilt, J.P. Morgan, and John D. Rockefeller?
I don't know nothing about none of those people.
There's just a bunch of names.
So one of them has my bank account. So
All right.
one of them has my bank account. No.
J.P. Morgan. Okay. J.P.
Early
Morgan was
20th
a venture capitalist. His father was an investment banker, and he financed Edison and put lighting into electric lighting. Before electric lighting, kerosene was the Rockefellers, and everything that was lit up was by them. Vanderbilt owned all the trains. Carnegie owned all the steel. So they were the guys that ran the country until Vanderbilt pissed off Rockefeller and told Rockefeller he got with the other train people, because Rockefeller was like 80% of train hauling, and he just said, they said, look man, it costs $5 to carry your stuff. He said $2 it is.
Yeah.
And they were like, nah, bro, I'll be telling you how much it's gonna be. He said, well, I'll go to Tracy. Tracy, do you want this money? Tracy's like, yeah. So what they did was everybody got together and stonewall Rockefeller. And said, we telling you now it's $6. And if you go to Tracy go charge you. If you go to Joe's gonna charge you $6 no matter who you go to. So he built a pipeline to pump his oil, his kerosene wherever he needed it. 80% of the railroad business went into the tank. And that's when the railroads failed. And guess what group of white men invested all of their bank's money into the railroads? The Freedmen's Bureau. The Freedmen's Bureau was all of the black people's money in the country, hence the name, Freedmen. And they lost all of the money in the railroads, all the black people's money, told them too bad, so sad. And the little bit that was left over, they built the Treasury Department, which is called the Freedmen's Bureau. So it just always seemed to get into the black people getting jacked up in this. But those were the major power brokers in the country and decided, in many ways, the ebbs and flows of how the country went. And I'm saying, is that any different than DuPont, IBM, Apple? I'm just asking.
Well, my question is that, are you bringing this up because historically there has been a specific party that has been aligned with the billionaires and with running the country the way that it is?
No, actually, I was only bringing that up because you said it has changed. And I was saying, how has it changed? Where was the change? What does the change appear to be? Is there a rationale or reason? Because I don't understand, looking at it, I don't understand how it's so personal to people.
Yeah.
And how it's just like when those people, it looked like Planet of the Apes on January, what was it, January 6th?
January 6th, yeah.
They were who is that man? I'm gonna climb
Oh, look who it is.
on the, scaling by hand the outside of a federal. I was just like,
It's gonna take us years for us to explain that one. There's a
you're
lot.
not going to explain
There's
it.
so much.
Only thing
there's so much
history is
baggage
going
there.
to do is soften it. Like it's gonna make it believable. But
How are they gonna
what
solve?
could have happened?
How are they gonna soften that one?
Huh?
I have. They already softened that one. I'm telling you now. People still treat that as a pandemonium. Absolutely.
They're trying to
catastrophic.
soften it. But it's too many people alive that saw it. That it was like,
Y'all-
where does
if you and Holly switch,
yeah.
and then y'all just
You know, the special guest people.
yeah, y'all just slide.
Sam.
everybody
Sam is
So-
late, everybody, but
King
so y'all
Sam.
slide over.
All right. See, I knew I said it for a reason. I knew I said it. But no, that was why I asked that question. You know, so I was saying, you know, where was the change? What is the perceived change? Who changed it? If you say, oh well, when it was this way until this particular president, and then after that, but it's the the visceral passion that is associated with these labels that in many ways don't seem to make any difference whatsoever.
Well, if you're looking at, I would say from a historical point of view, when it came to like the changes in the parties or whatnot, the only change that's really occurred is when you get that conservative and you got that liberal point of view or progressive point of view. The Democratic Party pushed out everybody who was conservative in the Democratic Party, and then the Republicans pushed out everybody that was liberal or progressive in the Republican Party. So you no longer had a collage in each party. You had them basically, the change basically was conservative, liberal. These are or conservative, progressive. These are your two parties now. There was no mix in the two. There was no room for compromise anymore. And
How
that's
did we get there? Because it used to be
that's a good question.
anti-Masonic party. It used to be the Black Panther Party. A lot of people don't understand that that was a political party. There were all kind of parties. You got the Green Party. Nobody talks about that. You had well, no, y'all don't remember. Ross Perot with the Independent Party that was actually a threat in a particular. So how did it get to be?
I don't know. I mean, let's look at it for let me drop a name. Rick Perry, for instance.
Okay.
He woke up in I think it was around 1986, and he said that he was no longer welcomed in the Democratic Party, so he had to walk into the Republican Party. And of course, he found much success there as a conservative base, but as a Democrat, they no longer wanted him. He was no longer welcomed, and he didn't want to leave.
What was the story behind it? Why?
So I don't really know like 100% of the story, but I know that that's what I've read. You know, up to that point, that he was pushed out, and so were the other conservative Democrats.
Okay.
Which, let's be honest, when it comes to conservative Democrats, you have to take a grain of salt there, anyways.
What I don't know what a conservative Democrat would be. Give me an example of why.
Conservative Democrats was the powerhouse of the South especially during like the Civil War.
So that's
timeframe.
your Joe Bidens of the world.
Well,
Nah.
no. We're talking about slave masters. We're talking about
Joe Bidens of the world.
No. Joe Biden is a more well, he's more moderate. He's a more progressive, moderate Democrat.
Now or
Well,
ever? Because he was a Dixiecrat. I'm talking mullet of Joe Biden that was with Reagan and was with he was on the wrong side of the war on drugs. He was a Dixiecrat, and the Dixiecrats were the conservative Democrats that pushed a lot of the Republican or conservative ideals.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, so he has everybody's looking at him really. I know you're not supposed to say stuff about people's age, but there's a particular age that you should stop driving. There's a particular age that you should stop playing professional sports. it's a particular age that you should stop flying a plane.
But from a legal point of view, what age is that? I mean, do we have an age for that?
We don't. That's the
For
problem.
plans we do.
Well, no,
For
we
plans we do.
We have an age. We have
No,
an
I-
age for retirement.
Yes.
So
Which gets moved up every.
So I do think there should be an age for politics.
I think so.
In totality, because I mean, at
Yeah,
this
well, I
point,
agree.
they have
Because he really
they have a lot of older white guys just running the country through Congress. Where
No, we're not talking older. I'm older. This is like
Older.
no, I'm serious.
Talking
Jerry
My-
Asher?
you know, Tamika's a nurse. He looks like the dementia patients.
Yeah.
I mean, like for real. Like they showed it on that Juneteenth thing when the guy kissed his hand. He just was really looking like, you know, like I was waiting on somebody to come and guide him off.
Yeah, right?
You know, and I'm looking like, you know, he didn't hurt the clap of thunder many a day. Some people wear it well, a homie doesn't. So, but I'm saying,
Yeah.
a lot of people don't like Trump. I find it a bit fascinating historically because he's pointed out. Everybody's saying they don't like where politics is, including my opponent. My opponent has been on the wrong side of politics for 52 years, but because it was Trump that said it, everybody that's not a Trump follower turned a deaf ear to it. And I'm going, he's right. Now, I'm not saying that Trump is a good choice. I'm not.
And thereafter goes
But-
into a rambling mess.
Huh?
And thereafter goes into a rambling mess.
True that. But I'm saying you got to look for quality when you hear it. You know what I mean? And so I don't see, especially so you have a. I don't see the difference. I've lived through. Oh God. Probably 8 presidents.
Uh-huh.
With the exception of Clinton's war on drugs that decimated my community because I lived in the inner city. Reagan,
Yeah.
who infiltrated the drugs, because when you say it's a drug problem, only 3% of the country perceives it a drug problem. And then 2 years later, the country floods with drugs that wasn't there when you said it. Reagan and Clinton, with the exception of danger, my life has not been affected by who is president, who is governor, who is whatever. And maybe COVID. Maybe COVID because the governor got to say, did you all think that was totalitarianism?
No.
Because by definition it was. Because if you have to look at the TV every day and a politician tells you if you go to work, if you can go outside, if you do go outside, how you have to be outside.
No, I mean, every day I woke up, I saw yet another tweet on the news from Donald Trump for 4 years. So it was like, I felt like a little bit like, well, yeah, this feels like authoritarian in my opinion. But, and I, like looking at the past, I could see it coming. When it comes to like, they really want Donald Trump to follow this 2025 plan when he gets in office. So the 2025 plan is basically destroying the Department of Education, destroying the, gosh, what was all the institutions? Department of Education.
What'd you say?
As I'm trying to remember.
Yeah, I don't have it in front of me, so.
Embarrassing.
But it's a particular thing.
Yeah, they're trying to eliminate a lot of the government institutions
Okay.
and give more authority to the president, which is a completely authoritarian move.
Yes.
And I think that, and then that's when we say, where's the change? I think we're looking at it. It's like if we see a high Republican win in November, I think probably by this time next year, you're going to see a radically different government.
what is proposed to happen with public education? If
They don't have an answer for that. They just want to get rid of the department. They have not said one way or the other.
I have heard of it. Heard of that.
Yes.
But while we're on the subject, I do have a question. What do y'all think about the two current choices? What are y'all thoughts?
Man.
I didn't hear.
What are your thoughts on the two current choices?
Sam, who you voting for?
You don't have to tell us, Sam, if you don't feel comfortable.
Say it, don't get a vote. No vote, no time.
I don't get to vote. Hey,
Don't let him talk to you like
I
that,
know I
Sam.
vote my vote. I don't even get to
Here's
question
the-
the
Do you think that it was? Do you
Would
think?
you vote if you could?
Yeah.
Damn.
So what are y'all thoughts? That's back to my original question. What are y'all thoughts on the two current options? I know y'all have heard me say, for the first time in my adult life, I'm not participating because either way we've had both. We've seen what both of y'all can do. Now to me, it's just a sword fight in between y'all, and it's no longer about the people. So in which that's how I feel about politics in totality now. Go.
This,
You said it's no longer about the people, which would say at a time it was for the people. What time did you feel? Now we're making America great again. When was it for the people?
Yeah, I don't know. It ain't never, to me, at this point, it ain't never really too much affect me. But when you're younger and you're just doing it because your parents say, hey, do it, you of course go into it doing it thinking that, hey, my vote really counts. Now as an adult, you like, my vote really don't fucking count either way. So what's the point of me buying into either system?
So did you think it was ever a time that your vote counted?
I mean, I thought at the time when they were telling us your vote counts, prior to me really understanding politics, I probably did believe it. Now I'm not interested.
So with your knowledge now,
Mm-hmm.
would you say your vote ever counted? Was there ever a day that your vote meant something?
Not on a presidential scale, probably not. Maybe if it's more,
Yeah.
maybe if it's like lower legislation, maybe.
If you were Floridian in 2000.
If what?
If you were Floridian in 2000, your vote counted.
oh my god.
Actually, no, it didn't.
Can you expand upon that?
I was in law school in Duval County, so that was always. It didn't matter what class you were in. It could have been contracts. It could have been constitutional law. It could have been torts. Every class was about elections and chance and voting process and all of that.
But that vote still came within, what, 700 votes?
And guess who? Of 50 states, my brother is the one who makes the final call.
Yeah.
Come on now. I don't care what my brother running for. I got the last vote. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 10 for my brother. He won. Come on, it's 50 states, and the one state that messed up is my brother's state, and he got. Come on, man. Really? And we're sitting in law school going,
How?
doesn't this end at the governor's office? Yeah. Why are they doing all of this? And so, no, that actually showed how little your vote does matter, because they can do anything to make the outcome, because ultimately, no matter what confusion was going on, the last stop was the governor's office.
Yeah. But let's be honest, when it comes to the American people's vote, how many Republicans in the last 40 years have won by popular vote?
A popular vote?
By popular vote.
Popular.
Wasn't the last one Obama maybe? Was that popular?
But he wasn't a
He was a
Republican.
Wasn't a
Oh, a
Republican.
Republican.
Yeah,
my
because
bad.
they're looking at what Republicans have actually won a popular vote.
If he was a Republican, I'd
Did
say
Trump
it'd be
not
a
win
very
a
different
popular
story.
Oh wait, no, Reagan. I
The
think.
first time?
I believe it was Reagan.
I thought it was
That's
like a
like-
landslide. The
That's
first
like
time.
40 years ago at this
Yeah.
point.
So the
right?
last Republican to win by popular
When he
vote.
went against Hillary, no.
the last Republican to win by popular vote was George W. Bush in
Oh.
2004.
That's
Right.
right.
But if
that's
you
right.
say, well, it doesn't count because 2000, he shouldn't have won because he lost the popular vote, you have to go back to his father.
Yeah, he did also.
He
also
won
did
by
Republican. That's right.
he
that's
won.
right.
He had a lot of electoral votes, but he did not win popular votes.
Wait, you're sure about that? I'm gonna check right now. Hold on.
Fact
No,
check
no,
us.
Trump
no,
lost
wait,
popular
no, I
vote.
thought you meant George Bush. Maybe
No, Trump.
no, yeah, absolutely, he lost the popular
Right.
vote. Absolutely. But
That part always I never got that part. You know, I'm not the biggest politics guy, but the electoral college is what it's called.
Yeah.
yes,
I never understood that part, to be honest with you.
It's
The-
typically supposed to protect smaller states, but I'm not sure it's ever protected a smaller state.
Mm-mm.
Not really. Because what it's done is really hurt the population centers more than anything.
So what I understood it to be was, oh, okay, this is going to protect the seat, right, from just regular people who have influence. For example, Kanye West. Let's say he was really that big, right? But we all know he don't know nothing about nothing, right? My bad, from Kanye West fans, you know what I'm saying? But we know he doesn't know nothing, you know what I'm saying? But so the electoral college was, say he won by popular vote, the electoral college is going to protect the seats from that type of thing, from that type of person that just has massive influence.
That's what they.
That's never
what they-
happened.
That's what they tell us.
That's
They,
not-
that ain't
they
what
told
it
us it was
is.
supposed to protect from mob mentality, but it has never in the history of the United States protected a mob
No,
mentality.
the electoral college came by. It is very well articulated in history where that came from. There was many when they started to form the country, they looked at pure democracy like Rome. They looked at all different kinds of experiments, literally and figuratively, of a negotiation. The reason why they came up with the electoral college was because of slavery. The population of black folks were heavy in the South, which would make the North always win because whites felt black people were not human and they did not have the right to participate in government. So at this point, Southern leadership is saying, we can't count our population, so now we are always going to be at a deficit against the voting in the North. So they said, okay, we will not allow these people to vote, but we will award electoral points per population.
Mm-hmm.
We cannot give them, you can't count them as a person. So that is where the 3/5 rule came in.
Yeah.
That's what I came from.
So the more people you had in your area, the more points you got for your vote, for your electoral votes.
Mm-hmm.
So that is why that system came about. Now, the biggest question is, once we didn't have slavery anymore, why do we still use the electoral college?
Because there's tradition.
I don't know.
Oh, you don't know? Okay, I thought you know.
I don't know. I don't. All I know is history. I don't have any inside government information. But that is why the Electoral College originated. And it is documented, easy to find, that is not necessarily challengeable.
Mm-hmm.
Sure. Okay.
And I do know that any electorate who votes against his public's or his state's decision will generally lose their livelihood. Really, if I recall correctly, they can go to jail for something like that for voting against what their state said. They've passed laws, and then in this last election. And it's interesting because it varies state by state. Because in this last election, you had fake electorates that they were trying to stuff ballots with, basically.
What a controversy that was. Goodness.
Still is.
Right,
It's still going to the courts, I believe. I think it'll be very interesting to see where that lands legally in the end.
Yep.
But we don't know where. I mean, it's like we're in a situation where what's truth and what's not
Yeah.
at this point. There's a lot of questions.
Yep.
Was Trump wrong for not conceding?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
Was Trump wrong for not conceding?
I mean, I'll say this is where it gets personal. Yes, he was not wrong. Or no, he was no, I
He
can't.
was
I'm sorry.
wrong.
He was wrong, but I will fully admit my ignorance on part of not understanding the whole situation and not understanding.
What was it that you didn't understand?
I am so far removed from like modern politics and from keeping up with the news. So
Well,
you would need to
The
extrapolate it a
election
little
was
bit.
held.
Most people
Yes.
are.
The votes were counted,
Mm-hmm.
and he said, "I refute." We actually learned the history of concession speeches. The reason why you have concession speeches is so January 6th does not happen.
Yes.
Go ahead.
But the other thing is, it's like what he really should have taken win, lose, or draw, he should have taken a page out of Al Gore's book and conceded. Al Gore eventually conceded as well. He did his court cases, he did his time. At the end of it, he was like, yeah, okay, I won the popular vote. I concede that I'm not winning this to the Supreme Court. It's going to George W. Bush.
Yeah.
Trump didn't have that humility. He's incapable of it.
And didn't he also have a platform, like he kind of ran himself in such a way that like conspiracy theorists and people of that specific population and or mindsets were also voting for and supporting Trump. So it kind of feeds into the spectacle of Trump to be like that over dramatic and that like, he's playing into a character.
Yep.
That society and specifically the people who vote for him are in it for.
Do you think he was serious, or was he just being being this character?
Yes and no.
Yes,
Probably.
it's complicated.
It's complicated to say.
I think we have to believe.
Is Trump or is it the character?
I think we have to believe.
Oh,
You
I think
asking
he's
me?
a character.
Oh, that's Trump, man. That's who he is.
You think he
I
a
think
That's
we
who
have,
he is,
I
yo.
think that's Trump.
He's worse, probably. He's worse on
So you
camera,
think he's
probably.
toning it down?
Yeah.
Really?
Toning it down, really? Oh.
So do you think if he could be, he would be a dictator?
absolutely.
Oh
Yes,
yeah.
yes,
Oh
absolutely.
yeah.
You ain't seen the show?
You're fired.
And
Okay. now, again, I'm just asking. Is that a dictator? Is that a corporate?
He's taking
Again.
pleasure in the behavior of your job.
No, Trump has proven that-
Guillotining your
Trump
job
has
right
proven that
now.
he wants control.
Yeah.
Like, even if it meant playing to a
Doesn't the
character.
president control?
No.
No.
It's
He
Congress.
governs.
It is straight Congress.
he governs with,
Hell no.
with two other branches of power.
Okay, but I'm saying within the executive, I'm
Within the executive, yes.
I
he's-
can't take
okay.
this
So
serious.
I'm just saying.
It's
So,
is to me the way it comes off is it's Congress basically who really runs shit. And how I figured it out was when they were actually trying to pass things that mattered. Congress was like, "Fuck no, get that shit out of here." And I'm
Yeah.
like, "Oh, y'all motherfuckers really got the power. He just a puppet." That's really what it is.
You probably need
okay.
you probably need a good $10 trillion to make Congress move. Ain't no lie.
Well, I think this goes into something that's really interesting that Rian brought up a while ago. Was you were talking about the age limits and term limits or more so age limits, because you were talking about how a lot of these people are old white men, but that's not the majority of the population of America. So they are not actually representing the full scope of diversity that is in America today.
And they're dying in those seats. So it's like they making sure we gonna keep the power. And even if I do, it's like they what they call it gatekeeping. I'm gonna make sure I put another either
I'm lost. Who's gonna keep the power?
Congress.
Congress is saying that Congress is gonna keep.
Yeah, because they're dying in those positions. It's not like, hey, at this school, I can retire,
Okay.
and I may be forced to retire. There is no retirement. I guess they love their jobs. Most of those people are millionaires. They love their job so much they're dying in those positions. So it's no way that I'm gonna let Dr. Bolton get that position. You get what I'm saying? So I'll hold it out for my son or whoever the case may be who has the same political agenda as me. So it's like,
So is Congress legit, or is Congress controlled by lobbyists and money?
Oh, lobbyists for
Lobbyists,
sure.
right.
Lobbyists,
Say,
but
shit.
also until they put term limits on it by particular people.
That's why people.
Because-
yeah.
Because it's, I mean, it's like, because it's not just about money, it's about power.
This is.
They're not
yeah.
the same thing. And when you hold that position, you hold some type of power. But you're gonna take that side money as much as you can, and when you can, even though it's illegal.
Isn't power the issue after money is no longer an issue?
What, after money?
Yes.
Yeah.
Sure.
Right. Because we're functioning under a Eurocentric value system where value is external as opposed to internal.
Mm-hmm.
So I have to get so much external that is superfluous.
Yeah.
Now we're talking about the internal because my community has to respect, because we function under the same value system, which is external things. Once I have that, I have your respect. Now I can exert my internal. So that's what I'm asking. Where you were saying, is Congress is really running stuff. This one dude only got certain money behind him. It is a plethora of money behind Congress because of so many different people. So that's what I'm saying, is it big business that's really able to go, shut up, we gonna do it this way? Or is it the good and well-meaning people of Congress?
Or the Egyptians in Bob Mendez's case.
I would say the money does play a part, but let's be clear. Congress has the power to say yes or no. So they got the ability, yay, no, like when everything happened with the Asian group, I'm not opposed to them passing something to protect them at all. Have at it. But when things were happening to Black Americans, where we were getting shot down in streets, and just pass something to protect us, it's quiet. You know what I'm saying?
The George Floyd Act didn't pass. The Emmett Till Anti-Lynching Act still hasn't passed. But what I'm saying is, they're not running grassroots campaigns. They're running $1 million campaigns too.
'Cause it was,
So I'm saying, aren't they just the representatives of big money, just like the president?
Yeah.
I'm asking.
hey, I'm not opposed to the idea. It may be somebody behind there. It may be a huge Asian business that was like,
No, it's
you
just-
better do this,
No, it's
or you
it's
ain't
a
getting my
huge Asian
motherfucker.
business. It's called China.
Hey, well, hey.
Yes, they did not want that smoke from China. Now, our home continent isn't internationally strong. It's been kept weak since the Berlin Conference. So, no, they can kind of do whatever they want to us, and that's why they have been. Because the Berlin Conference happened in 1886.
Like Hawkins, I think so.
Yeah, 1886. Right when we were going into government sanctioned segregation. They were weakening Africa at that time. So as problems was happening with black folks, the continent of Africa is being cut up. So there is no force external to us that you are going to have some smoke with. And China is not an ally. And China has a leader who is not scared of the United States. So they did not want that smoke. So that's the difference in our politics and in our money. There are trade agreements. If it's going to mess with money, we're going to make sure that we handle that. So
Nobody's blinking on Taiwan, so the leader of China is blinking on Taiwan. He's now saying that we're the ones that are trying to cause them to invade Taiwan, and it's like that's not the case.
So again, was Trump invoking the meaning and the spirit of the Declaration of Independence, that when you see something wrong in your country, that you have to change it? Or was he just throwing, did he think that was going to happen?
What, the insurrection?
Yes. Did he think that was going to happen?
Man, I don't think so. I don't know.
I can't prove it one way or the other.
It's-
So how can I even comment on it?
It's
I
such a
mean-
nuanced conversation
A
because
lot of people said that he said, go down there and tear it up. Which I know what he said. And this, just me, I could not imagine in a million years. What was he irresponsible in how he did it? I don't think he really thought that people was gonna go down there and tear the building up.
I agree with you on that but I think the reason why it did happen is because we are just in a very specific time in our society and with culture and with, the people that Trump attracted and his MAGA, fan base, so to speak.
Mm-hmm.
They are that type of people. They are the people who honestly daydream about being a part of a revolution and part of a civil war on, their enemies. And I think it's because you have people like that who supported Trump that's why you would have something like January 6th happen.
But we had those people in 1860.
No, we definitely did.
And so, no, but I'm saying they did not take the Confederate flag into that building.
Well, yeah, because they played.
Yeah.
Sorry, go on. No, go on.
No, I'm saying, so those people have always been here. And there've been all kinds of disagreements. I've never seen nothing like that in my life.
Nope.
Man, that's grassroots politics on a whole nother level, I believe.
And I think
And-
it's sorry.
No, I'm sorry. A lot of the Trump years, which I feel like is like the era of grassroots politics gone radical, I think it's really an outgrowth of the '60s.
Wait a minute, say that again.
I call it the when grassroots politics went absolutely radical,
Grassroots politics.
because it's
going
very very specific. Because when everyone is talking about the Trump years, they usually talk about how divided politics became, Democrats and Republicans became. And specifically, talk about how Trump sort of utilized a lot of dog whistling and a lot of grassroots politics to appeal to the conservative base.
What kind of politics? Dog whistling and what?
Grassroots politics.
Grassroots, okay.
To sort of appeal to the Confederate. Not Confederate. You know what I mean?
I mean, you might as well call them,
Yeah,
right?
The conservative base, which is why we got so much stuff like the Charleston March, and the what are we gonna say?
What I would challenge is that Donald Trump didn't start any of that.
No, I don't think
Donald Trump was a symptom of a cause.
No, I don't think he started it, but a lot of what happened during that time was definitely an outgrowth of
we
what
would have
happened
had
before.
Donald Trump if we did not have a black president.
Wait, say that again?
It's possible.
Would we have had Donald Trump if we did not have a black president?
It's possible.
Well, the way that I always look at, not always, but when I was younger, when I would be looking in my history books and I would be looking at like the list of presidents through the years, and you can kind of see a pattern in how.
You think?
Yes. You can see a pattern in like you have a couple years of Democrat, and then the next candidate, the next president will be a Republican, and then you have a couple years of Republican, and then you swing back. So it's this constant pendulum that's swinging back and forth. And
Oh, I thought you were talking about in its diversity. Facial hair or no facial hair. It was all rich white men.
it's all well.
There
And
was no women. There was no other ethnicities whatsoever. Until Obama. I mean, and then it was this huge swing back to almost birth of a nation.
Let me ask y'all this: who was Trump before Trump?
The business guy.
That's right.
the
the
business
business-
guy.
No. Before
Trump
before Donald Trump,
Oh,
who politically represented that crowd?
Reagan.
Reagan.
No, there was another.
George
Nixon.
W. Bush.
It was far more radical than Reagan. No.
I'm interested.
Okay, so, Newt Gingrich.
No.
That dude was.
Explain.
Newt Gingrich didn't change the country.
He doesn't have that cult of personality.
Reagan.
No, but he changed the house and the way it
Reagan.
functioned.
Changed the
And then-
fabric of the economic system. He elevated slavery again.
And from
He
but,
took 2 generations of people, poor people, disproportionately black people, and made the prison industrial complex for 40 years, the entire economic system had changed. Newt talked some stuff, and he was the Speaker of the House, but changing the fabric of this country, that's Reagan.
no, I don't think so. Oh, I think Reagan did that, yes. But then you had Newt doubling down, and then after Newt, you had Karl Rove, who altered politics forever.
I'm saying, what did Newt do? What did 100 years from now? Because Newt's gone, and he God bless him. But when we look back, what are the anthropologists going to find that Newt did? Nothing.
Yeah, that's true.
Reagan, prisons, economic structure.
Yeah,
Education.
trickle down economics.
I mean, yeah,
education,
Reagan was the guy.
the military, especially.
Well, and he appealed to the cultural,
In
trying
that
to think
blind
of the
following
Zionist.
of Trump, that Reagan, that God-like following. Newt didn't have that. Newt was, that's our guy.
Well,
But-
most people hated Newt, so
Well, no, he was
Yeah.
very popular. He was the Speaker of the House. He was an elected official. He had a lifetime of, he had a lifetime lifetime career as a
yeah.
politician.
But that man was never going to be president.
Well, I
Well,
think
true
there's
that, but-
there's tiers of things that
Right, there's levels
affect
to
this.
this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because like you have a cult of personality with someone like Ronald Reagan and Trump, but then you have someone who's working behind the scenes like Newt Gingrich, who's putting in policies and
Right.
kind of setting the scene.
Yeah, he's
to
going to be in the
change
history books,
that.
but he ain't going to have his own chapter.
Yes,
I honestly
yes.
think though he could have been Trump. I honestly think
He probably would have been
if he
Trump.
could have had the same, if the people were already at the same whipped up mentality that they were in 2016.
I think he was
I think Newt could've made
trying to whip them up. He just wasn't that dude. Reagan
Like
wasn't trying to whip them up. He was just that dude. Everybody was like, when I was alive when he was president,
Mhm.
and people weren't like that about him. At least I couldn't tell. But definitely when Trump came, that type of godlike association to a politician I had not seen since Reagan.
Yeah.
Well,
yeah.
there is a religious element to it now.
There's what?
There's a religious element to it now, especially with Christian nationalism.
Mhm.
It's-
But he doesn't really seem to be a
Oh
very
no,
Christian
he's
person.
not.
He's
I
talking about handicapped people. He's snapping on women.
I know.
Is Trump racist?
Yes.
Yes,
I think so. Yeah, he is.
I know
No,
plenty.
let's not go past that.
Okay.
Is Trump racist?
Probably.
Probably.
Do you think Trump is racist?
In my little knowledge, very little, I'm thinking when I'm going past that. I don't think so.
Do
I
you
don't
think
know.
Trump is racist?
I honestly couldn't answer the question.
I think
I think it's possible, but
Okay.
I think
He's
racism exists at some level in everybody.
No, he's absolutely absurd.
I agree with
So,
you on that.
yeah.
But there are people
He is absolutely
that are
absurd.
saying, you can't be a billionaire in this country, educated in this country, a beneficiary of the systems of this country and not have bias. Okay, so we're not talking about the bias that's in all of us as Americans. We're not talking about that. It's people that have this man as just the essence of evil. And my question is, this man has been, again, I've lived a long time. All of my life, up until the time he ran for president, I really think he only did it to pump his show up. When you heard the word Trump, you thought money.
Mhm.
Uh-huh.
and I'm talking decades,
Bankruptcy.
40 years.
Bankruptcy.
It was still, if you heard a rapper say something about, when you use the word Trump, it was synonymous with money.
Yeah.
It was not synonymous with
Usually when you saw,
hatred or bigotry.
and usually when you saw him, it was actually doping.
When he did, as famous as he was, and as many people as he worked with, and he had a hit show on TV right before that never came up. And he was old then.
Yes.
How is it just suddenly he just became a card carrying? Now, again, I do believe he is a billionaire who feels everybody is equally worthless.
Yes.
I think he looks down on everybody.
Yeah.
Because he makes fun of the handicapped, he makes fun of women, he makes fun of black folks, he makes fun of white people, he makes fun of poor people, he makes fun of rich people, he makes fun of smart people. He's just like, if you're not me, you're an idiot.
Yeah.
I don't understand. It's like they want to whip up people, and they're blowing this dog whistle because
It's an easy win.
he didn't lock up millions of black people. Biden did. But everybody, but all the minorities that got locked up, Trump,
But it's an easy win.
huh?
It's an easy win politically.
How is it easy?
It's going to be an easy win politically when it comes down to it. How many elections has Trump and his people won in the last 3 elections?
Well, he only did 2, right? He only did 2 elections.
Yes, but he was also, voicing folks for 2022 as well. And by the numbers, he lost that election. By the numbers, he lost 2020. By the numbers, he lost 2018.
But only
You mean he lost the popular vote?
Yes.
2020.
Yes.
Well,
And him and and the people that were running on, on his.
I think
coattails.
I think Lincoln lost the popular vote one time.
Yeah, he did.
Yeah, so
But
if
look, I'm
you
talking
play
about.
with strategy. I'm not mad at you for playing with strategy.
Well, that's not what I'm talking about.
Okay.
What I'm talking about is, in the last 3 elections, he has lost.
Okay.
I'm talking 2018 during the midterms,
Mhm.
2020, 2022, and now we're going up to 2024. Do we really think he's going to win the popular vote?
Let's take the same logic, and again, I don't have a dog in the fight, but let's take the same logic. Name me anyone else who could go through an impeachment. He went through 2 impeachments, right? Or just
2.
1? 2 or
True.
1?
He went through 2,
2 impeachments.
Yeah.
Okay.
one after office.
A felony,
31.
and is still leading the polls by a lot.
Is he?
He's beating all
Is
the
he?
Republicans.
Is he, or are we looking at a situation where they're just giving us numbers? I mean, are these numbers legitimate? I have to ask this question. Or are they whipping it up so much to make it seem that Biden's under so much threat, dropping these things where it says, "Hey, I'm gonna be a dictator. I'm gonna do this 2025 plan," and Biden's just sitting there raking in the votes.
It's fear mongering.
I mean, obviously,
Fear
fear
mongering.
mongering. That's been a thing for a while.
And yeah,
now.
no, that is, I think, the primary way that votes are won and people are swayed to vote one way or the other. And it's more so to sway people to stay in a particular party.
Yeah.
Because I'm gonna go back to the whole like Christian nationalism and like Christians en masse supporting, and I'm gonna do air quotes, supporting Trump, is because I can speak to knowing the Christians in my family that the whole reason why they love Trump and support and vote for Trump is because they hate Democrats who they believe Democrats are all atheists, are all gay, are all wanting to destroy religion. And that's the reason why they vote for Trump, because in their minds, Trump at least will defend my religion and will defend the Christian values, as opposed to Democrats who want to let gay people get married and blah, 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 blah.
But there's also the issue of the fact that it's okay. We're not seeing, I mean, he's going to rallies, and we're not really seeing what those numbers are.
Yeah.
We don't get to see what Biden's rallies look like. You never see that.
When you say
And
numbers,
I bring this up, and I bring this up.
what do you mean by numbers?
I'm getting there. So we're not seeing the numbers at his rallies. We're not seeing his numbers at the rallies. And then when you go back to, it's like I knew in 2008 who was going to win between Barack Obama and Hillary Clinton. I went to Hillary Clinton's rally one day. Only 900 people showed up. Of course, she couldn't stay because they hit that police officer in the barricade and they had to leave. But only 900 people showed up. Barack Obama came to town the next day. I couldn't make that one because I had to work. 20,000 people showed up. Gee, who's the president? And how many showing up for McCain? It wasn't 20,000. So let's look at it that way. Who's showing up for Biden's right now? Who's showing up for Trump's? We don't have those numbers this time.
That's what I'm saying. It doesn't sound like anybody's showing up for either one of them.
Well, we don't know because
And if it comes down to, if it's not people, because you would have to believe that this system is by the people and for the people to matter.
Yep.
I don't feel it was ever by the people.
Oh,
I don't feel it was
No.
ever for the people. Hence, it never mattered. This country is always formed as a secret oligarchy.
When this country was first created, who could vote?
White land-owning white men.
yeah.
Land-owning
Yes.
white men. And how many were there of those?
Not many.
Like a handful.
Which is my point
Yeah.
about it doesn't matter who's coming to these things. Because I don't know if that did matter. Because that's why I was saying what numbers, because sometimes they say it's the Nielsen ratings.
Actually, I think the numbers do matter because I think voting matters, and here's why. Because when you have people voting in bulk, I don't think it can be ignored. Florida came within a few hundred votes in 2000. If it had been like within 25,000 votes, there would have been no wishy-washy mumbo jumbo stuff going on in Florida. There just wouldn't have been.
Well, again, voting would matter. It depends on who you're talking about. If you're 12% of the population, voting doesn't do anything for you at all. Because democracy is majority rules.
Yep.
Yeah.
At best, you have to hope that what the majority needs align with what your particular group needs. So it's set up for it not to mean anything to most people except for poor white people. Why? Because there's more poor white people here than anybody. But we know that 1% of the population owns 90% of the country's wealth, so it's really not for the poor white people.
That's true.
So why are we acting like there is any value in this system when the access to wealth is not there? The 1% has it, but we've been given this information that you matter, and you don't even have more than 10% of the wealth.
But when in history has wealth ever been given to, a middle class? The only other time in history that I know a good middle class in the last 2,000 years was the Dutch.
Oh, no, because you had the Western expansion, and that required wealth to come to the middle class because they were trying to drop down the tax rate from 90% of the rich, which is why they built the white middle class, where they gave them all the land and everything. And then when that whole penal slavery, chattel slavery deal did, the first 50 years of that, black folks did real good. So it was a huge middle class that came about. The problem was the top keeps sucking it up, and then it drops. And then they spread out the middle class, and the top sucks it up, and it drops.
Okay.
So we've had several strong middle classes over the history of the country, but we've had panics ever since the early 1800s. I think the first one was 1813, and then it was another one in the 1840s, and it was another one in the 1850s, and then we had the Civil War, and everything was good, and then we had
In the 90s,
economic problems after
30s,
that.
90s, yeah.
So it's not that it's greed.
Mm.
It's greed, but again,
Yeah,
I-
agree.
I find. Oh, here's a great question: is history going to look fondly on Trump?
Let's see. We're now 8 years from his election, 4 years.
I think he's gonna. I think hands down he's gonna win this time. I think hands down he's gonna win this time. But
I don't think so.
I mean, it's uncharted territory right now. I'm not sure.
What is the most famous history quote? Is history is written by the victors, right?
Yeah.
but think about it. Andrew Jackson was an idiot.
Ulysses S. Grant
Brother,
was
horrible.
horrible.
Yeah.
He would fist fight people.
And duel.
And I mean,
No.
wasn't
He
um,
was what? Oh, let's do it.
Teddy
But-
Roosevelt
He's
was
100 years to their
racist?
grave.
But only Andrew Jackson could send the army to South Carolina and threaten to hang their legislator.
But that's what I'm saying. Andrew Jackson is remembered fondly, and he was
The hell he is.
for all intents and purposes, he's on the money. We only got a few
We've
bills,
been trying to get him off that money for years over his genocidal acts.
Still have it, and that's the problem.
and that's my point. That's my point. They had only what we stopped making the $1,000 bill. Y'all know we used to have $1,000 bill.
Mm-mm.
Yes,
They
I
stopped
know.
making that, and it's really only 5 bills, and he got one of them. So that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
That people,
People were voting for
when
him
you get
100 years.
away from the damage they did, people like interesting history.
That's true. And you'll have to look at Andrew Jackson as an example, just, I guess, to Trump, because even after 100 years, after the man was dead, people were still voting for him and writing him in.
Wow.
So I'm saying I think people are because once you're so far removed from the hurt,
Mhm.
it sounds interesting.
Yeah.
I think history is going. I think he'll probably be more remembered than the Bushes.
I wasn't.
No, yeah, I agree with that.
How are they going to talk about it in the history books, though?
Huh?
I think the thing is that we're still too close to the influence that the cult of Trump has on modern society. I think that as we get further away from it, and historians are able to look back at it, I think then a better picture is going to form of how exactly will he be.
I'm not
If you
so
talk
sure.
about all of the presidents you have personally lived through, which one are you going to really have some passionate response when you're talking about?
Who's that question
So,
Anybody?
I mean,
for? I know I'm beefing with Bush because he left us in Katrina, man.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But do people
Yeah,
I
you,
mean-
you got a very unique.
Oh my
do
gosh.
people talk
Yeah.
about
Oh
this?
my
Yeah.
gosh.
but I will say,
Dude went hiding.
I will say this.
People talk about this.
Sorry.
No, go on, go on.
Interrupted.
No, go on.
No, I
No.
that is a very
Yeah, that's a good
unique
point.
circumstance that literally the president response.
He didn't
Was
respond.
He didn't respond.
Yeah, he didn't
That's what
respond.
I'm saying.
It was the lack
I was
of
like,
response.
dude, my family was on the fucking we was on the fucking roof, like dead. Like we was about to drown. If my grandmother didn't have a 2-story house, we would have died.
Yeah.
We
Yeah.
would have died, hands down.
Because and that is very closely related to the president's response.
So when I say
touche,
as far as him, it's fuck him and his family personally.
I mean, no one really talks about it in the same
And-
way.
so
they talk about
you're
it.
in along with me
Because
saying
they-
that Trump is gonna be remembered better than him and the Bushes.
I don't think so. I think in terms of George H.W. Bush, I think he's the architect of the last half of the 20th century. Have you ever gone to his presidential library down in College Station?
Yeah.
Take a walk through it sometime. It's really interesting. I mean, just with the way he was in the oil industry, NSA, CIA. I mean, the saying only Nixon could go to China, who orchestrated that? That was George H.W. Bush. He orchestrated the geopolitics of the 20th century going into the 21st century. I think that he's much bigger. Maybe the only one that might be as underrated as him is Carter.
No.
I think well utilizing this new form of social media, I don't know if anybody can outdo Trump. Just for Trump being
I
who
agree.
he is.
That's
And I don't even personally
Social
like
media
him.
is totally different because
I don't even like
all
him.
of this cool stuff that the previous presidents may have done, nobody knows. Everything Trump did, sin.
Yeah.
Everybody knows.
Yeah,
Like,
even
like,
though-
I never knew that. I just thought he carried out Reagan. I thought he basically rode Reagan's coattail.
No, historically, he's a powerhouse.
I mean,
or was.
Yeah, his use of social media is very important too, because Obama is always attributed to being, the first president to be president in the social media age. But when he was president in 2008, the social media age was still early. It was still in its somewhat incubation period. Twitter, wouldn't be a thing yet when he was president.
I would
eventually use it more often.
I would say Obama was the first guy to use it.
Yeah.
I think Trump took it to another.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
what I'm getting to, because Obama used social media, but he did not use it on the same level as Trump did. Like, Obama used it to make, certain announcements. Sometimes he would post his playlist, which he still to this day. But no, Trump, everything, you're right, he said, was an instant, like, send, like, everyone would have to respond.
I think he has a
That's-
much,
but
just
what
because of
was
social media.
But what was the reaction most of the time? Vitriol.
Everybody went into an
No,
uproar.
it
I mean,
was
media
either
played into
love
it.
Either love or
Community
hate.
played
Or it
into
was
it.
hate, but it was polarizing. And
See, that's,
honestly, and
yeah,
I could be wrong with this, but as a historian, there are more. Well, no, it's not a story. Just as a person who can count. That dude almost won.
Actually,
It is 48 million Trumps in this country that we know of.
I would say, and I find this really interesting. I know Trump has always been screaming for the last few years, where's my votes out of Georgia? What happened to Georgia? Sorry, President Trump, they're in the ground. Look at the death numbers for COVID. Look how many numbers he lost. Look at it in Georgia.
I remember there's a
He
moment.
killed his base.
If COVID didn't happen, would he have been president?
Man, that's a good question.
I would say probably.
That's a good question.
Probably.
It might have.
Definitely.
I
would
think
say
It might have.
COVID had a lot to do with how many people went out to vote.
And I can tell you that a lot more
think-
people would be voting for Biden right now if it wasn't for the Afghanistan debacle.
And I told y'all earlier that when a completely different video that during that election they completely flipped Georgia. Like Georgia was a blue state, just from activists working basically within the Atlanta area. And I think they might have tied in. I think they might have gotten felony votes and stuff like that. Like I think they set up some type of system where it actually worked. That was the first time that I personally ever seen politics actually work, based on them actually going out and doing the work. I was like, oh wow, I never thought I'd see Georgia as a blue state
And for a brief moment, Texas was almost was a blue state, kind of.
Really?
For a brief moment, like in the early hours of the election.
Okay.
Then it went completely right after that. But,
You're years off from Texas even being purple at this point, I think. So
So
I think it's coming.
So that proves to me, like, because I voted in 2020, and of course, 2020 felt like the year to go out and vote. This is like everyone was like, vote or die. This is very important. It was like it felt like the most important year for people to vote. Like, at least from how people were talking about it, which kind of lead. I want to ask a question right quick.
Yeah, go
So
ahead.
people always tell me that, a lot of people did not really care about voting, for a good chunk of the 20th century. But then when we got to the year 2000, suddenly it became really important to vote. That's what I heard people say. I'm not sure if they actually subscribe to that. And I just want to know, like, is for those of you who remember, was that true? Like, were more people interested in voting in like the year 2000 and then onward compared to before, or am I just completely wrong?
That's because of Karl Rove and his politics and the way he pushed the constant 24/7 pandering, the constant 24/7 politicking when it came to what's the word I'm looking for? Running. They're constantly running for president. Even after George Bush won, they were still constantly running for 2004.
Mm-hmm.
It never stopped, and
So-
that version of politics has never stopped. It's kept going through every
Yeah.
president. We're always in an election cycle now,
Yep.
and I don't see it stopping anytime soon.
Something that I would be interested in is, you know, because, so answering your question specifically, I was still very young at that time in 2000, but I do remember kind of becoming aware of politics at that age, especially from hearing my parents talk about it and having like Fox News and shit be on the TV all the time. And I know.
That's
But-
another important factor too.
Ooh, yes. But the thing is that I realized that my parents were trying really hard to push politics on me. Not only my parents, but my step parents and just like everybody that was kind of in my family that I could have access to and discussions with like that. They suddenly were just, it became so important, and it had never been important before then. But the reason it became important to me also was because of 9/11.
Yeah.
Was because of what happened then,
That's a
and
good
then all of a
point,
sudden
yeah.
it became so divisive. And that's what I really want more information and to look on for myself, is to go back and see, like, where was the inception of how divisive it got? Like, has it always been that way?
No, it
No,
wasn't.
I don't
What,
think so.
what actually did it, and I'm surprised how few people have traced this to it. It was when the news got bought.
Oh.
The news used to be
Yep.
the news.
Yeah, just see
This happened
information.
downtown. It's the parade. It was a fire here.
Define bot.
Literally, when Fox started, it was a black station. In living color, rock, in shows like that. Black folks watched it. And this is what happened. The Wayans family came up with the idea of, during the break on the Super Bowl, we're gonna do a show. Fox's ratings went up so high, the NFL said, we're gonna start doing a halftime show. That's where the halftime show came from.
Okay.
And because of that conversation,
That was nice.
a deal got made with the NFL, and they dropped the black folks that got them the NFL. You don't see no black shows on there. You ever listen to Fox News?
Oh yeah.
The person that owned it changed it to the political alignment of the wealthy people that came with the NFL.
And that political alignment.
And then it became this "we hate black folks" channel. And then, of course, somebody else is going, well, if everybody's paying all of that money for their base, let me pay, they buy CNN. So now we have no real news because it is literally owned. And what's the new, is it Tubi? The new
Tubi.
channel that they're
Tubi.
doing now?
Tubi, yeah.
Tubi.
The same guy that owns Tubi is the guy who started Fox. And watch, Tubi is going to end up right now. They got all of, black folks can get a deal to do this, and they're showing all these movies and all of this. Watch black folks not be welcome on that in 10 years. I'm just saying, it is a model. This person moves like that. But that is when that occurred, when news changed. It was literally owned by particular groups of people, and the news wasn't news. Like, you can punch me in the face, turn on CNN, and they're gonna say, Darnell attacked him and he threw his hand up and it hit him. And then you turn to Fox and they say, he just attacked Darnell out of nowhere. It's like, okay, wow, is that so? So that is really, it's something as simple. But what was media called? The fourth estate or the fourth? Because you're supposed to, yes, the branch. Yeah, it was supposed to be, you have your executive, you have your judicial,
Legislative.
I
you have your
I would challenge that Ted Turner started that change.
So what now?
Ted Turner, when he invented CNN, I would say that he started that change.
Okay.
When it came to the 24-hour news cycle and trying to make it entertainment, getting people
Yes,
to watch
okay.
it.
But
But
it was still regular news, though.
yes, it was.
Yeah, but
But there was still a bias to it.
It may have been. It may have been because it wasn't as noticeable as Fox's move, and maybe they elevated their game to ridiculousness when Fox did it. But Fox was like, it was so noticeable because that was the channel all the black folks was watching, because it started off with all these black shows, and then it was like, we don't like black folks. And it's like, whoa, hold it, what happened? And then you start noticing these two changes in the news. So that may very well be the case. But watch Tubi. Watch it.
So I got a question. What role do you think media plays in politics?
Oh,
At this
major
point.
role. Oh, major role, especially in the past
It's
60
building
years.
careers
Like
now.
so, the news media has changed so much since the 60s, when, before you only had three major channels: ABC, NBC, CBS, just standard channels that were used just to deliver news, for the citizens, like what's going on in the world. Okay, and it was just that's it. It wasn't anything more and nothing less. That's all we're gonna do. Then by the 60s, like early 70s, we started seeing, more executives in the channel sort of like trying to make it more appealing to like much wider audiences. So they started adding, more content, like more shows and stuff, to see like how well that would do. And then suddenly we started seeing like this sort of mindset in like the news industry, where it became more about like not just about delivering news, but also just about increasing viewership. So we started seeing these channels and having more shows into their channels, and then eventually we started seeing like other companies sort of buying out these other companies. So like Capital City in like '85, when it purchased ABC, that was like the first time we ever saw a major buyout of a network before. And then suddenly we started seeing that a lot more and more by the 80s and 90s, and eventually like those channels that were originally meant to just deliver news also became more interested in, increasing viewership, which of course meant like we need entertainment.
That's a function of all TV, though.
Yeah, I know that's a function of all TV, but
Because Ted Turner we're just talking about news and media.
yeah, I know,
You're
but
right.
and a lot of
Ted Turner turned it up with 24-hour news.
yeah, I know, but I was getting to that. I was also gonna say
I know, but I'm just saying. We got 5 minutes left because we got to be done at 10:30.
Okay.
So, but I feel you. But all of that is a function of media. All of that is a function of television, Nielsen ratings, all of that. What we were saying, how this relates to politics, is meaning where it started to sour. Its growth and its adoptions and its strategies, yeah. But when did it become visceral?
I couldn't tell you that.
It was at that point, at the turn of the century, when people owned the news. And people have always owned the news, but it's like it was partified. It was clearly, like, we're not even reporting the same event the same way.
No, but yeah, it's absolutely
January 6th was reported,
so many different ways.
no,
Oh.
2 different ways.
Yeah.
It was
Actually-
2 different ways. You turned to this.
On the January 6th, it was reported one way.
You're-
On January 7th,
I agree.
it went to 2 ways.
Yeah.
Because nobody can believe it.
Right.
Yeah,
Yeah, touche. I
Yeah.
stand corrected. I
True.
just want to make sure you guys know that.
that's true. That's true.
We're coming up on, we got like 2 minutes.
The only thing I have to say about its part in politics is they are mouthpieces for their political parties,
I think so.
and they're agenda based. I mean, that's basically all it is.
I really would like to find, those people don't talk to me. I would really like to really find, and I don't care if they're these blind Democrats. Like, I don't understand how you can tell me your position on something before you heard the issue. I'm conservative on some things. I'm liberal on some things.
Which we all typically are.
We all are.
But that's not how our country functions.
No.
You gotta pick a side
Yeah, you gotta.
And you gotta be that all the time.
So my thing is,
Candace Owens, I think, really is a terrible person. And I shouldn't say that, but I will say her persona, because I really don't believe that that's who she is. I will say her chosen persona is horrible.
mm-hmm.
How can you always be, which the one time she wasn't, which now we know how you can always be on the same side. Because when she said, oh, well, I'm always saying the right thing, I'm saying what you want me to say about black folks. Nobody gave her the memo on Jewish people. And when she said, she didn't even say anything mean.
I know she's in the news, but that's all I know. Who is she, really?
One of the black people that they give millions of dollars to talk horribly about black people.
Yeah, they call her a grifter.
Yeah, she's part of that whole business of grifting specifically for conservative politics with like Ben Shapiro. I can't think of other names, but like it's the Daily Wire.
Yeah.
And so there's one thing I do want to say, and it kind of wraps this whole conversation up, is that the issue is because labels have become such an important part of people using labels to identify their identities and to try and like broadcast who they are to the world. Because in some ways, I think a lot of people find it easier to just say, I am this. And it's like, well, the issue is that we have media that tries to paint someone of a specific label to be only that, to be a cut and dry kind of black and white sort of person and issue, when, like you say, we're all, you know, kind of have what you would consider conservative values, or we all have what you would consider liberal values. But we put those labels on those values, and instead of them just being values, they are now labeled values. And that's the issue.
I can't say that media is doing that. I think people are doing that, and that's
Well,
why
who's running the media?
That's you know what. That's why I find
Media's
it
definitely
illogical
distributing.
that I am saying I'm a conservative. So I'm already letting you know, no matter what the situation is, I'm going to agree with it, be it George Floyd, be it war on drugs, be
Is
it
that true though?
what-
If you say you're conservative, that means you agree with everything that's.
See, that's the
That
thing, is
that
that you
is
don't.
what, but I'm
Yeah,
saying
I
that
know.
is what it's appearing to
I
me.
think that's how people treat everybody.
Yes,
That's how you treat
yes.
somebody. If I say I'm a Christian,
Yeah.
you gonna have certain expectations from me.
Mhm.
Now I may have a different viewpoint of how that goes along, but you gonna be looking at me like, no, that's not what they do. That's not what they do.
I
This is
would
your
roll.
standpoint."
I would roll with you, but let's keep going with Candace Owens. There was never a black issue that she saw validity in the cause of black folks. It was. It was.
But if they just paying her to do it, then what does it matter? What is their opinion?
Exactly.
But that's what I'm saying. When January 6th happened, like you said, everybody was kind of like WTF.
Absolutely, just
But the next day, they were like, well, it wasn't an insurrection. It was, and I'm like, and you could tell if I had on blue, I was outraged. If I had on red, it wasn't quite that bad. You know, it was this, it was that. But one thing, which I guess we will have to end, and we can end it on this.
Right,
Did anybody notice that Blue Lives Matter died January 6th?
Yes.
You
It did.
never
It did.
heard that slogan. You didn't see
God.
the flag.
Still see it
That's
on
access to
cars.
the flag.
They on the
I
card,
still see it.
yeah.
The most in police cars.
You do not
everybody
hear
car.
it. You do not see it like you
On your
did
car.
when the white
That's cap, y'all.
conservative
It's not on my
base
car.
attacked federal police officers and beat them with the American flag. You never heard Blue Lives Matter.
That's when they hated the police. That's when they were like,
Oh,
fuck
hey,
the police.
but that was one of the biggest embarrassments in this country. But that's actually one of my favorite moments. So you go
Of course,
ahead.
All right,
those
all
same
right.
folks are running around with the Confederate battle or Confederate flag too. So I don't really.
It all goes back.
All right, class in session.
Yeah, that was